we can all get a little emotional sometimes. And in a work context, well, it can be embarrassing or awkward or frustrating or just unprofessional. So today I'm going to share 5 proven strategies for how to maintain emotional control and regulate your emotional expression so that you can show up as your best self in the workplace. Welcome to The Modern Manager. I'm Amy Canfor Stewart, and every week I share habits, tips, frameworks, tools, resources, and all the things you need to know on how to be an effective manager and build a culture where people get to be their best selves and do their best work. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. So let's start by just acknowledging that we all have emotions, we are all human, and that emotional reactions are totally normal. And the goal is not to stop ourselves from having emotions, but if you're feeling sad or frustrated or excited or angry or disappointed or any other emotion, to just be able to acknowledge that emotion and not let it interfere with your interaction with whoever or whatever it is that you're doing. So our goal is, again, not to say goodbye to emotions, not to put them in a box and shove them aside, but to give ourselves the ability to process those emotions in a healthy way and do whatever it is we need to do in the moment to stay connected and engaged in that conversation or in that work, and find time later to more appropriately process the emotional reaction that we're having. So here are 5 strategies that you can use to help manage your emotions in the moment and proactively manage your emotions when you might expect that something might be a little bit triggering for you. And let me tell you, these were new to me when I first learned about them a couple of years ago. This was very eye-opening, and I have found to be very effective for helping me and my clients be able to better manage their emotions. So the strategy of being forward-looking means that you're being proactive about how you can either minimize the chances that a setting or a situation is going to be emotionally heightened, or avoiding that situation altogether. So for example, if you know that a meeting is going to be particularly challenging for yourself and it's going to be very hard for you to not let your emotions flare, you might consider sending a team member to that meeting instead of yourself. Or if you know that going to networking events at a conference, say, is very awkward feeling for you and you just have a really hard time, makes you very nervous, maybe you decide to proactively find one friend at the conference and make a plan to meet up with them and go to that networking event together. Those are both strategies where either you're avoiding the situation altogether, sending someone else in your stead to that meeting, or proactively supporting yourself so that when you get into that situation that is going to be emotionally nerve-wracking, you've got a little bit of support there for yourself. Both of those are being proactive and forward-looking. Next up, we have breathwork. Breathwork is an incredible strategy. The mind-body connection is so real. And when you just take a few deep, calming breaths, it is amazing what happens, and your whole mood and your whole energy can just change. And if you haven't tried this, I urge you to find some time to be in a space where you can just take some deep breaths, and it's okay to even vocalize, to do that. It relaxes all of our muscles. It relaxes the vagus nerve. It just allows your body to let go, which then allows your mind to let go. So when you find yourself in a situation and you can feel that your energy and your emotions are starting to rise up, whether they be good emotions or hard emotions or wonderful emotions that you need to tamp down, whatever it is, just taking a few deep breaths can really help reground you and get control over that emotional response. Next up, we have attention shifting. So as children, we are pretty innately designed to shift our attention away from something that is causing us pain or emotional reactions and focus on something that is bringing us pleasure or making us feel calm and safe. And this is a strategy that we can use all the time. It can look like when someone's yelling at you and you're feeling really uncomfortable, the beating has kind of gotten out of control, of just refocusing your internal attention to something else. Maybe you're thinking about the project you have coming up that you're really excited about. Or I've even heard people say that they hum to themselves or they sing one of their favorite songs in their head. Whatever it is to kind of mentally remove yourself from the situation and allow yourself to just refocus and move your attention to something that doesn't feel quite as exhausting or emotionally triggering. Another great way to use this technique is to ask for a pause. So you may have heard this before. If you're in a difficult conversation and you just feel like you're not able to express yourself the way you want to, or you notice you're getting defensive, or you feel like the other person just isn't hearing you and it's just so aggravating, you can always say, and I love this one, I don't think I can have this conversation right now. I think I need a break, or I don't want to discuss this anymore. Let's just try another time to talk about it tomorrow. I have used that so many times when I've just needed to say, this isn't working for me. I can feel that this is not going anywhere. I'm frustrated. I can tell you're frustrated. And I just think we need to take a pause and give ourselves some time to process. That's another way of shifting your attention and kind of moving away from the conversation or the situation that's not working and allowing yourself the space to process your emotions. Next up is my favorite. This strategy is called cognitive reframing. With cognitive reframing, what we're doing is actually looking at the situation or the source of the emotional reaction from a different perspective. One of the reasons I love this strategy so much is because I first started doing this after watching Game of Thrones, when Littlefinger says to Sansa Stark something along the lines of, when somebody does something that I don't understand or that is hurtful, I kind of look at it and I say, what's the worst possible reason they could have done this? And then does that explain their behavior or their words? And I heard that and I thought, wow, but what if we looked at it the opposite way? What if we looked at what they did and said, what's the best possible reason? If I were giving them the benefit of the doubt, what's the best possible reason they would have said that to me or they would have done that thing? And I have used this strategy a number of times, and it totally changes how I see the other person and the situation. It gives me that empathy, gives me some compassion, and suddenly the emotional intensity just goes way, 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 way down. It still might not feel good, but I just understand it in a different way, and it gives me an opportunity to then explore what's really going on here. Because the story I'm telling myself originally, in which I was feeling really hurt or frustrated or disappointed, may not be the whole story. So it allows me to see something from a different perspective. The other aspect of cognitive reframing that I think is super helpful is to be able to put the situation in a bigger context. Sometimes we might not be happy with something, but our emotional reaction, if we act on it in that moment, is ultimately not going to serve our best interests or the project's best interests or our organization's best interests. And so we need to kind of pull up and see the situation in a bigger picture and be able to say, all right, this is not what I would love. This is not making me happy right now, but I'm going to just stay reserved. I'm going to hold back. I'm going to allow this process to unfold because I know that ultimately at the end of this project or at the end of this conversation, if I want to get this person to agree to this decision, or if I want to get this project done on time, I need to maintain some semblance of relationship with this person, or I need to hold my tongue a little bit and allow this to move in the direction that I need to. So I'm going to hold back for the greater good. Not always worth it, but occasionally it can really help get through a difficult moment when you see the end in sight and know that there is a way to get there. And if you have an emotional reaction or you explode on somebody or whatever it might be that you allow your emotions to get the best of you, it's going to inhibit you from actually getting to the place that you want to be at ultimately. Lastly, we have the strategy of the meta moment. A meta moment is when you are able to, in the moment, recognize what's going on for yourself and take that step back and say, okay, I'm going to show up as my best self right now. I'm going to take my emotions. I'm going to acknowledge them. I'm going to put them to the side for now. I'm going to be my best self in this moment. And I'm going to process my emotions later in a safe space in an appropriate way. This is definitely a skill that everyone can develop. And it starts with getting to know your own physical sensations, your symptoms of your emotions. So for me, when I get really angry, I can feel my muscles tensing up in my body. My hands can become clenched, or I can feel kind of like my shoulders. I also know that when I get nervous, I get really cold and start to shiver. It's a very bizarre sensation. It took me a long time to realize that those shiverings, when I was like, is anyone else cold in this room? And everyone would say, no, we're fine. That for me, that sensation of being really cold was actually my nerves. But once you know those symptoms, you can then in the moment say, oh, I'm noticing that I'm cold, or I notice that my hands are clenched. And that allows you to recognize that you're having an emotional response and choose to respond instead of react, to decide how you want to express whatever it is you're feeling in a healthy and appropriate way, or to hold those emotions back completely and continue to be in a lower, calmer state, and then process your emotions afterwards. Don't put them aside and forget about them. Find a healthy way to process them after. So take the time to get to know your body and your emotions, what might preemptively trigger you so that you can come in prepared, you can avoid a situation if you need to, or find ways to proactively reduce the risks for yourself. And use your breath work. Find opportunities to redirect your attention or walk away if you need to. Take a different perspective or develop those skills to really show up and be your best self and find healthy ways to process your emotions after. I know that you can do this because I have done it. Many of my clients have done this. Learning to manage our emotions is a skill, again, every manager and every team member can develop if we take the time and put in the intention. If you found this video helpful, I hope you'll subscribe using the button below and check out my latest video. Every week, I release a mini episode like this where I'm sharing insights and frameworks and ideas to help you be an effective manager, as well as interviews where I talk to guests who are experts in their field, all designed around how to help you be an effective manager where you build a workplace culture where everyone gets to be their best self and do their best work.